Hello, my name is Dorn Lauer, Fiscal Analyst with RCO. Today's tutorial is on expanded documentation. We will be covering the definition of expanded documentation and demonstrate how to complete this requirement. Now it's time to bill. Expanded documentation. Occasionally, RCO will request expanded documentation for transactions during a specific time period. When you receive a request for expanded documentation, you'll want to find all transactions that took place during those dates and provide the documentation that will support what was spent for each transaction. By transactions, we mean payments, donations, and other related items. For example, let's look at what is needed to meet the requirements for expanded documentation for a project. In this example, we will need both expenditures and match. You will need to include all payroll and related documents, such as timesheets, composite rate calculation worksheets, or itemized payroll reports. All invoices, such as receipts or itemized invoices showing full details, and all donation documents, such as volunteer logs and donation statements. You don't have to provide expanded documentation for every billing, just when RCO specifically asks for it. Please do not attach expanded documentation if it was not requested. There are some programs that require expanded documentation with each billing. In those cases, we will let you know about this requirement when the grant is awarded. You will be alerted in the PRISM billing cost page when expanded documentation is required. You will need to first create your invoice and enter costs. Before submitting the invoice, you are required to click the Check Page for Errors button. When you check for errors, PRISM will alert you to the expanded documentation requirement, if applicable. This notice will identify the specific time period for the required expanded documentation for the project. When expanded documentation is required, attach supporting documents for all transactions in that time period.
When the documents are attached, the error will be resolved. The error text will now show green, indicating the invoice is ready to be submitted.
Now let's talk about specific documentation. Expanded documentation is the supporting documents for the expenditures and match reported to RCO. These documents include payroll documents made up of timesheets and composite rate calculation worksheets and/or itemized payroll reports. Submit all the complete timesheets and highlight the time worked on RCO projects. Timesheet requirements are in Manual 8 in Section 2 under Payroll. Here are the highlights of what Manual 8 has to say about timesheets. Reflect the actual activity of each employee after the work has been done. Account for all the work of the employee, not just a subtotal. This means the full timesheet, 100% of time worked. The RCO time worked needs to be on its own line. All the other work needs to be separate. Be signed or authorized by the employee or by a responsible supervisor having firsthand knowledge of the activity performed by the employee. Be prepared at least monthly and coincide with one or more pay periods. Not be budget estimates or other distributions based on a percentage before the work was performed. Composite rate sheet is defined as a summary sheet that collects all pertinent payroll information that allows you to come up with an all-inclusive hourly rate, payroll, and total benefits. If you choose to use the composite rate method, please be sure to use the RCO template. The template is available on the billing page of rco.wa.gov. Itemized payroll reports are the other common option used. These reports show actual payroll and benefit costs by employee. That includes the details charged to RCO. If you are billing for an extended range of time, like a quarter, all in one line that includes the expanded documentation period, like 1 month of the quarter, all supporting documents must be provided. To make it easier, you might want to break up your billing so there is one line for the expanded documentation time period and other lines for the remaining time period. That way, you only need supporting documents for the expanded documentation line and not the other lines. Invoices must show total amount charged. If you are not billing 100% of the invoice, include an explanation on an attached document. Be sure the invoice includes the details of the items purchased, including taxes. Credit card receipts just showing the purchase price are not acceptable. Donation logs. Include all applicable donation logs. Highlight amount reported to RCO if necessary. Include summary spreadsheet. Have donation documents match the reported amounts. For example, $1,100 is reported as a donation. There should be an attachment with all the donation details equaling $1,100. Include a calculation sheet if needed to help us match the amount reported. Donation documentation requirements are in Manual 8 in Section 2. Here are the highlights of what Manual 8 has to say about donations and volunteer logs.
Donation and volunteer documentation must include
volunteer's name, contact information, dates of service, work site or location name, description of work performed, hours worked, crew leader signature. Another item to be aware of, include internal charges such as indirect with details for the amount charged to RCO and a calculation sheet, if needed, to help us match the amount reported. On the billing attachment screen, let's take a look at how to actually attach documents in Prism. In a billing in draft form, go to the billing attachments page. Click on
attach file or photo.
Navigate to the actual document you want to attach and select. For the billing attachment type, select Billing Expanded Documentation for every attachment. Reminders: expanded documentation is the supporting document that backs up the charge to RCO. Only include expanded documentation when requested to do so. Only include expanded documentation for the period identified on the green note on the billing screen. If the amounts reported to RCO do not clearly match the supporting documents, please include a spreadsheet or other document to explain. Expanded documentation scenario. To illustrate expanded documentation, let's go over an example and identify which costs need expanded documentation and attach those documents. In this example, we will assume that the billing is already drafted but not submitted. In Prism Online, go to the home page, enter your project number, click on the left side arrow to open navigation options. Click on Billings. This will bring you to the billing screen. Click on the pending invoice. Go to the setup screen. It will show you the billing period for October 1st, 2024 to December 31st, 2024. Next, click on the cost page. This will show the transactions entered. After the costs are input, make sure to click the Check Page for Errors button. At this point, Prism will display the expanded documentation requirements, if any. In our example, there is expanded documentation required. Prism will display the required expanded documentation at the top of the cost page in green text. In our example, expanded documentation requested is for October 1st, 2024 through October 31st, 2024. The note at the top of the cost page indicates that expanded documentation is required. The message says expanded documentation was required for this transaction dated between 10/1/2024 and 10/31/2024. To meet the expanded documentation requirements, we need to provide supporting documents for all transactions dated during that time period. For transactions outside this period, expanded documentation is not required. Do not include backup for transactions that are not in October, such as transactions dated September 1st, November 20th, and December 30th. Based on the transaction dates, payment dates, assemble the required documentation. In this example, we only need expanded documentation for the first 4 transactions. These are in October. The last 2 are outside the dates required for expanded documentation, shown at the top of the cost page. First, let's talk about payroll. In this example of payroll, we are using a timesheet and composite rate method, but an itemized payroll report might be the backup for some sponsors. There are 2 documents. We will need to upload a timesheet for employee Michelle Watts and the comp rate for employee Michelle Watts. Here's the October 2024 spreadsheet for Michelle Watts. There are 40 hours charged to this grant. This timesheet clearly shows the 40 hours. Here's the comp rate sheet for Michelle Watts. This clearly shows the rate of $28.06. She worked 40 hours at $28.06 per hour. That charge is $1,122.40. That matches what was billed. Timesheet 40 hours, comp rate $28.06. Now, let's look at vendor payments. The billings for contractor Gladmore and social strategists fits this time frame. The billing for Gladmore is $15,135. This clearly matches the amount billed to RCO. The billing for social strategists is $104.98. This clearly matches the amount to RCO. Finally, let's review the volunteer entries. The volunteer log meets this time frame, so we will need to upload it as well. This log totals $1,470. This matches what was reported to RCO. Now let's attach these documents. Go to Billing Attachments, click on
Attach file or photo.
Navigate to where the documents are saved. Select the appropriate documents using Billing Expanded Documentation as the attachment type. Let's wrap up our example with some takeaway ideas in general. In the attached documents, make sure pertinent information is highlighted, especially work hours on the timesheets. For vendors, include the actual invoices. Do not include pages of purchase orders or non-applicable details such as additional emails and approval memos and other unrelated documents unless the information is requested by RCO. For more information about creating a billing, see our other trainings. Intro to e-billing number 1 and number 2 on rco.wa.gov billing page. Today, we have shared what expanded documentation entails, when and how to upload it in Prism. Good luck with your future bills. Let us know if you have any questions. We hope this video has been helpful. Have a great day.